Today, we're diving into a really tough question, one that's at the heart of Chris Hedges' book, Death of the Liberal Class. And it's this: why do the very institutions we trust to protect democracy so often go silent right when we need them the most?
Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. So let's explore this paradox, right? Why do our watchdogs, the press, universities, unions, so often fail to bark when there's a real threat?
Well, according to Hedges, this isn't some random accident. Nope, it's the result of what you might call a system of silence.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The press is supposed to be a watchdog. Universities are supposed to be these hubs of critical thought. And unions, they're there to fight for the working class. And yet, Hedges points to these huge moments, like the run-up to the Iraq War, where these pillars of the liberal class didn't just stay quiet, they actually helped sell the official story.
You see, this kind of failure, it's almost never a loud, dramatic betrayal. It's way more subtle. It's more like a quiet complicity, a slow, creeping retreat from their core principles. And Hedges' main argument is that this happens when the watchdogs become dependent on the very power structures they're supposed to be watching.
To really get our heads around this, let's use a little metaphor. Imagine our democratic institutions are like a fire alarm system. Hedges argues that the liberal class, we're talking journalists, academics, artists, labor leaders, they lost their ability to sound the alarm because their very survival, their funding, their access, their prestige, it all got wired into the corporate state.
So it's kind of like having a fire alarm that's plugged directly into the building's main power grid. Now, on a normal day, everything seems fine. The little green light is on. You feel safe. You feel secure.
But what happens when a real crisis hits? What happens when an intruder who wants to bypass security doesn't bother trying to smash the alarm itself? They just cut the building's power. And in that one simple move, the alarm is completely useless. It just goes silent.
So how does this systemic failure actually work? Hedges points out a few key ways this happens.
First, you've got what's called corporate capture. This is when the alarm, our institution, becomes totally dependent on the building's power. Think of universities taking huge checks from corporations, or journalists who care more about keeping their access to powerful people than telling the hard truth. Their ability to even function is now tied to the goodwill of the very system they should be scrutinized.
And that leads right to the next problem: institutional complicity. When a real threat shows up, like an unjust war or massive financial fraud, the institution is pretty much neutralized. To sound the alarm would mean criticizing its own funders, its own benefactors. It would mean cutting its own power supply. So it does nothing. It stays silent.
And this all creates what you could call manufactured consent. See, the alarm isn't completely dead. It still does its routine little things. It chirps when the battery is low. It gives you the appearance of being a working safety device. But it's all an illusion, a dangerous illusion of safety. Because when a real fire breaks out, it's absolutely useless.
Hedges actually brings up this amazing quote from the sociologist C. Wright Mills that just nails this idea. It is much safer to celebrate civil liberties than to defend them, and it is much safer to defend them as a formal right than use them in a politically effective way. That right there is the sound of the alarm chirping. It's performing its routine function, but it's not doing a thing about the actual fire.
Okay, so if the alarms inside the building are totally compromised, where does that leave us? What are we supposed to do?
I mean, if all the internal alarms are silent, who can still see the smoke? Well, according to Hedges, the answer lies completely outside the building.
He insists that any real, authentic resistance has to come from an external force. It has to come from people and movements who are not plugged into the system's power grid at all. Think about Dorothy Day's Catholic worker movement, which refused to take grants, or the journalist I.F. Stone, who got blacklisted by the mainstream press and just started his own newsletter. Their power, their credibility, came from their independence.
Looking at it this way really forces us to completely rethink what real change actually looks like. And here's the powerful implication of all this. If we recognize this deep structural dependency, it means that simply trying to fix the alarm, trying to reform the media or whatever, it's just not enough. Because if the alarm is still wired to the same compromised power source, the fundamental problem is still there.
Ultimately, Hedges' analysis is a huge challenge. It's a challenge to us to look beyond the established institutions for real answers and to start asking a really provocative question: where does authentic resistance truly begin today? And maybe more importantly, who still has the independence to lead it?
The ideas we've been talking about in this explainer come from the incredibly provocative book Death of the Liberal Class, written by the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Chris Hedges.
To really dig into these concepts in all their depth and complexity, we really encourage you to read the book for yourself or go borrow it from your local library.
For the full, long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description.
If you enjoy systems-level analysis like this, please subscribe and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.